What's up everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Persona Overview. In this series, we analyze the party members from Persona 3, 4, and 5 in terms of their affinities, stats, skills, and any unique mechanics they may have in order to determine how they should be built and utilized in the party. As per usual, our focus would be on the newest version of each game, those being Persona 3 Reload, Persona 4 Golden, and Persona 5 Royal, but we will briefly go over the differences between the new and older versions for each party member. These videos would be gameplay focused, there shouldn't be any major spoilers if you can avoid it, but as always we recommend to watch your own discretion, and if you haven't played a Persona game before, we highly recommend giving the series a try. This episode will be focused on Takamaki from Persona 5, who goes by the codename Panther in the metaverse. Her first persona is Carmen of the Lover's Arcana. She awakens to a persona on April 15th during the events at the first palace, the Castle of Lust. She's available to use in battle for the first time immediately after that, starting at level 5. That being said, after that tutorial battle, you'll be forced to leave the palace, so you won't be able to use her again until the first free day, April 18th. She is one of the first characters to join the party, and she's available for the entire rest of the game after she joins, not missing any battles. As for her Confidant, rank 1 is unlocked automatically on April 15th after a persona awakening, but you won't be able to progress it any further before the first palace infiltration arc is complete. Specifically, the next free day she's available to advance her Confidant is May 6th.
Looking at On's affinities, we see that her persona Carmen has a weakness to ice attacks and a 50% resistance to all fire attacks. This makes sense as she focuses a lot on magical fire attacks and serves as the party's first major offensive magic attacker. A handful of personas in the first palace where she is unlocked are weak to fire, such as Mandrake, Silky, and Succubus. On also has 2 showtimes she can perform when corresponding members are in the party, those being Yusuke and Morgana. On Showtime with Morgana is the first to be unlocked after the Phantom Thieves discuss ways to potentially be more proficient and synergistic in combat. This Showtime is unlocked on June 21st and has a mandatory tutorial that occurs during the third palace. The title of this Showtime is Gun with the Wind. Her second Showtime with Yusuke, the Kabuki Kid, is unlocked a little bit later on September 19th. Although she isn't the first party member to unlock both Showtimes, that honor going to Ryuji, she still has access to them fairly earlier on, which bodes well for her viability.
Taking a look at On's stats, her HP starts at 109 and reaches around 522 at level 99. This is the second lowest among the controllable party members, only above Morgana. On a similar note, her endurance is also one of the lowest in the party, with a base stat of 4 upon joining and 55 at max level. Considering those together, this means she's definitely one of the most frail party members. However, she doesn't use physical skills, so she really doesn't need as much HP as most of the others. Moving on to the SP pool, she starts at 62 and reaches around 310, which is pretty high and definitely a lot higher than the primarily physically focused party members. Interestingly though, the other magic focused party members and even some of the mixed attackers have slightly more SP than her. As for strength, she starts at 3 and reaches 55, which is usually the lowest among the party. This isn't a big deal since she doesn't use physical skills like I previously mentioned. Her agility starts at 4 and becomes 56 by level 99, which is once again one of the lowest in the party, only above Ryuji, but to be fair, the party's agility stats are all very similar, so hers is only a bit lower than most of the others. This stat analysis has been a little harsh to this point, but now we'll take a look at what are arguably her 2 most important stats. Her magic stat starts at 6 and reaches 78, which is the highest among the party. This is very beneficial for both her magic damage and healing output. The other important stat is luck, in which she starts with a value of 5 and then reaches 61 at max level. This is the second highest in the party behind Morgana, and the reason it's so useful for her is because it's the main factor in determining the accuracy for her ailment skills. Overall, On's stats are very good. While there are some areas she's weak in, she excels in the stats that are most important for her kit. Like all other party members, she can also benefit from the Jazz Club to increase her stats beyond the values we listed here.
On's persona trait is Mastery of Magic. This trait has a 20% chance of triggering every time an offensive magic skill is used, and when it does, it lowers the SP cost by 30%. Although this doesn't sound too good on paper, given how On herself only uses magic skills and that she functions the best on magic-focused teams, this trait will trigger more often than you would think and can help you deal with the rapid SP drain that you may face when on long Palace or Mementos runs. This becomes more impactful the higher you level as well, as stronger magic skills become very expensive in terms of SP costs, and having a way to lower them occasionally is nice and saves you the trouble of running out of items. Generally speaking, On is best suited on magic-focused team comps with this trait, alongside the fact that Sleep techs off of literally everything, and Burn techs off of Wind and Nuclear. Additionally, she later gets a very strong ability that helps buff the entire magic damage output of a party. Regardless, even if you run her on a physical team comp, every party member in this game has some sort of magic attack, so this trait will still apply even for those comps as well, even if they're using their physical skills most of the time. As such, a trait like this provides longevity in battles where you may have to use a lot of high-cost SP skills such as bosses, along with the aforementioned assistance when inside palaces or mementos for a long period of time.
On has a very simple list of offensive skills. She specializes in fire magic, and this is all she really gets in terms of her offensive skill set. These all have a chance of applying Burn, an ailment which deals additional percent-based damage over time to afflicted enemies, but is never fatal. Perhaps more importantly, it can be used to trigger technical attacks from wind and nuclear magic. She starts with the skill Agi, which costs 4 SP and deals light fire damage to a single target with a 25% chance of inflicting burn. She doesn't get another offensive skill until level 13 when she learns Miragi, which is the same base power as Agi and a slightly lower burn chance at 20% instead of 25%. For clarity, all of her single target skills will have a 25% burn chance, and all the multi-target skills will have a 20% burn chance unless specified otherwise. It also has a noticeably higher SP cost of 10, but its advantage is that it hits all foes rather than just a single target. This means that if you hit 4 enemies with Miragi, there's close to a 60% chance of burning at least one of them. At level 22, she gets Agilao, which is another single target fire skill like Agi. The SP cost increases to 8 SP, but in terms of damage, it increased from light to medium, which translates to a roughly 58% increase in base power. Miragion is unlocked to level 35 and shares the same base power as Agilao, but it hits all foes in exchange for 16 SP. At level 46, she gets Agidine, a fire attack that costs 12 SP and deals heavy damage to a single target, which makes it a little over 26% stronger than Agilao. Its multi-target version, Miragidine, is unlocked a bit later at level 54. Finally, her last skill learned by level up is Blazing Hell at level 74. This is a multi-target spell like Miragidine, and it has a slightly higher burn chance of 24%, which is nice. The main defining feature of this skill is that the damage tier increase is severe. However, if you actually look at the base powers, it's only about 6% stronger than Agidine and Miragidine. Meanwhile, it costs 54 SP, which is a massive increase in SP cost. Still, it is her strongest skill, so if you're looking to maximize her damage output, you will want to use this, but it is very inefficient in terms of SP usage, and the base power increase is very disappointing. Overall, An has about the skill set you would expect from an offensive mage. It's not particularly expansive, but she stands out by being one of the very few party members with access to severe magic damage, and also by typically learning higher base power magic skills and multi-target magic skills a few levels earlier than the rest of the party, which keeps her ahead of the game in terms of damage output.
An has a fair amount of support and passive skills she acquires via level up. Her first one is innate to her kit, being Dia, which heals one ally by a small amount for 3 SP. This helps ease the SP burden off of Morgana in the early game, which is somewhat appreciated when exploring the first couple of palaces. At level 7, she unlocks a very important skill, Dormina. This skill costs 3 SP and has a 70% chance to inflict sleep on a single target. In Persona 5 Royal, sleep is even stronger than it was before, given how it's become easier to build around technicals, which Josh will talk about later. Next at level 11, she unlocks Tarunda, which decreases the attack of one foe for 3 turns for 8 SP. This provides a nice consistent way for your party to debuff strong single enemies such as mini-bosses and bosses. Her next skill arrives at level 16, being Takaja. This skill is a bit more niche, but it can still be somewhat safe to have as it removes all buff effects on foes for the cost of 10 SP. At level 25, she gets Fire Break, a skill that suppresses fire resistances to all foes for 3 turns for only 6 SP. While the break skills are generally niche as it takes a turn to set them up and you're generally better off just hitting enemies' weakness, An herself really has fire magic as her means of offensive damage, so if something resists fire, she's pretty much completely walled out during the fight, only able to offer support with her other skills. So while the break skills are somewhat niche, An would be the character to get the most value out of one. A few levels later at 28 unlocks Diorama, a direct upgrade to Dia in terms of healing output that still targets one single ally and heals them a moderate amount for 6 SP. Moving on, we have Lullaby at level 30. This once again is a pretty nice skill, providing an AoE version of Dormina that inflicts sleeps on all foes for a relatively cheap 8 SP. The main issue is that the infliction chance goes from 70% to 50%, making Dormina generally more reliable if you want to inflict sleep on a specific enemy. Next, we have the passive skill Ambient Aid unlocked at level 33, which increases the chance of inflicting all ailments by 25% when raining or during a special weather warning. Since the outside world generally only affects mementos, this skill is very niche given that palace battles make up a very hefty chunk of this game's combat and exploration. I'd honestly advise not using this passive as An's kit. However, the next passive she unlocks at level 38, Fire Boost, is very helpful as it strengthens all of An's fire attacks by 25%. This is a very simple passive, but one that will pretty much always end up in her final build. A few levels later, at level 41, An gets Matarunda, which for 24 SP will lower the attack of all foes in the battle. This can be useful in hard encounters with multiple enemies, but is generally a lot more SP demanding than the single target skill Tarunda. At level 50, An gets Burn Boost, which increases the chance of inflicting burn to foes by 25%. Although sleep is definitely the best ailment she has access to, passively applying burn is not a bad thing as it provides some minor chip damage, as well as teching off of both wind and nuclear. Afterwards, An gets Dia Rahan at level 57, which is a full heal to one ally for 18 SP. In the next coming levels, An gets some very strong abilities. At 62, she unlocks her last support skill being Concentrate, which boosts the power of the next magical attack for the user by 2.5 times for 15 SP. This is an extremely nice skill for her to learn naturally and provides an extremely nice power spike for her magic damage, alongside the next passive skill, Fire Amp at level 68. This skill is similar to Fire Boost and can be stacked with it, but instead it buffs fire damage by 50% rather than 25%, making it another essential pickup for On. Lastly, we have Evade Ice, which she unlocks once you max out her social link. This applies to most party members, as once you max out their link, they usually acquire the evade skill of their sole weakness, which helps their survivability a lot.
On serves as the Lover's Arcana Confidant in this game, and rank 1 of her Confidant is automatically unlocked soon after her awakening on April 15th, as I mentioned before. This doesn't grant her any Confidant abilities in Persona 5 Royal, since the Baton Pass mechanic is available to her from the start. After the events of the first Palace arc, you'll be able to keep advancing her Confidant, though you will need her Kindness social stat to be at least rank 2. At rank 2 of her Confidant, she unlocks the ability Girl Talk, which has a chance to activate when you fail to negotiate with a female shadow, allowing you to try again. At rank 3, like the other party members, she gets Follow Up, which as the name suggests, gives her a chance to randomly step in and offer to perform a follow-up attack whenever Joker fails to down an enemy on his turn. She gets Sexy Technique at rank 4, which is another random chance ability that you can't really rely on, but it does have a strong effect. During combat, it can randomly entrance enemies before they act, canceling their action. It can also make shadow negotiation easier because if you choose an incorrect response, it can activate and make the interaction favorable. At rank 5, she gets her last unique ability, Crocodile Tears, which is an extremely situational ability. It only is useful when one of your party members gets taken hostage by a shadow, which is already rare, but even in that situation, it's still a random chance to actually activate. When it does activate, it will make the shadow demand less in exchange for returning the hostage, which is nice. At rank 6, like the other party members, she gets Harrison Recovery, which gives her a chance to cure a party member's ailment whenever her turn arrives. This isn't something you can rely on, but it's always nice when it does activate, and generally gets a good amount of value throughout a playthrough. She doesn't get anything for rank 7, but at rank 8, she learns Endure like the other party members, which is great. It gives her a chance to survive a normally fatal attack with 1 HP, which can be very clutch when it activates. On a similar note, at rank 9, once again like all the other party members, she learns Protect, which gives her the chance to shield Joker from an attack that would normally be fatal, taking the damage herself instead. Obviously, this is a preferable outcome since you can always revive her in battle, but Joker being knocked out results in a game over. Finally, maxing out her Confidant by reaching rank 10, just like most of the other party members, will result in her second awakening, evolving her persona Carmen into a new persona with multiple gameplay benefits. This is also necessary to allow access to her third awakening later, so without further ado, I'll let Jeff explain these persona evolutions.
Upon reaching the final level of On's social link, Carmen will evolve into On's second persona, Hecate. This comes with a few changes to her affinities. Instead of resisting fire, Hecate outright nulls it now, meaning all fire attacks against On will be rendered ineffective. Additionally, she now also acquires another 50% resistance to a different element, that being electric. Although she remains weak to ice, as I mentioned in the passive and support skills list, she unlocks Evade Ice when her social length is maxed out, which is the exact same time her persona evolves. This improves On's survivability quite a bit and helps circumvent the only element she is very vulnerable to. Assuming you have maxed her social link out by the time the third semester rolls around, On can undergo a third awakening to her final persona, Celestine, after you initiate a conversation with her that plays out very similarly to a normal social link rank. Just like Hecate, there are a few gameplay benefits that follow suit, all of which are quite impactful. Firstly, her persona trait gets upgraded from Mastery of Magic to Pinnacle of Magic. Although the percentage chance of activation remains the same, the cost reduction goes up from 30% all the way to 50%, which just increases its effectiveness even more. At this point in the game, most strong offensive magic skills you will be using cost a fair amount of SP, so reducing them by half occasionally for the full party is definitely an appreciated upgrade compared to her regular trait. Lastly, we have her third awakening skill, which is extremely strong. She gets High Energy, which when used, it applies the effects of Concentrate to the entire party. This means the next magic attacks from every single party member after the skill is used will do 2.5 times damage, allowing for turns with extremely high levels of damage output. It's no secret that this is one of the best third awakening skills present in this game, even if it costs a whopping 80 SP to use, and makes On an essential member of any magic team, as not only is her magic damage output very strong, she can provide invaluable support to other magic users, especially those who don't innately get Concentrate like she does.
On gets a lot of very useful skills, so deciding on just 8 of them for a final build is really difficult. The 2 that should definitely stay are the passive skills Fire Amp and Fire Boost. These provide a massive buff to her damage output that is essential in any build. As for offensive skills, despite my previous criticism of Blazing Hell, I do think it's worth a slot just to maximize damage output. To manage SP cost though, I would also run it alongside at least Augudine and maybe Miragudine as well in most builds, though it may not be necessary if you have a passive skill I will mention later. As for support skills, I think it's really important to run at least one sleep skill in On. It's very debatable whether it's better to take the higher success chance of Dormina or the multi-target effect of Lullaby. Personally, I usually go with Lullaby, but I could see the argument for taking Dormina for consistency, or even taking both of them if you have enough slots. We also have to look at Concentrate, and the version that affects the whole party, High Energy. You should definitely take Concentrate when you get access to it, and you also should definitely take High Energy when that's unlocked. However, Whether high energy should replace concentrate, or you should keep both of them, depends on how well you think you can manage the SP cost. As for other support options, Rahan healing is nice, but healing items are so abundant in this game that I don't think you need to dedicate one of On's slots for healing when there's so many other skills competing for that slot. Matarunda and Dikaja are also nice utility, but Debilitate reigns supreme in the late game, which makes it a bit harder to justify keeping those around. Fire Break is very situational, but it can be useful for certain fights. Finally, Evade Ice and Burn Boost are both great passive skills if you have the slots for them. Outside of her actual learn set, On can learn a lot of useful support and passive skills from the Jazz Club. There are several that can be useful, but the one that stands out is Spellmaster, which is obtainable on January 29th. This is a passive skill that halves the SP cost of all skills, which is extremely useful, especially for Blazing Hell and high energy. Typically, the skill set I go with on in the endgame is Blazing Hell, Concentrate, High Energy, Lullaby, Fire Amp, Fire Boost, Spellmaster, and Evade Ice. But like I said, there are many variations that can work as long as you primarily focus on her magic damage output.
As for gear recommendations, On has a fair amount of unlockable weapons given that she is available pretty early on in a playthrough. Starting with her melee weapon, the Whip, there really aren't too many that increase her stats like other party members. There are some, like the Decorative Whip and the Strike Tail, that only increase luck by 5 and strength by 3 respectively, which pales in comparison to some late game options that buff stats, especially on ranged weapons. Generally, any weapon on that inflicts ailments are solid, as that's the special effect of most of her whips. The Masquerade Ribbon R that can be acquired when itemizing Queen Mab during a Fusion Alarm is a solid option, considering it has a medium chance to inflict Dizzy, which is another ailment that techs off of everything. Her penultimate whip is acquired by itemizing Black Frost during a Fusion Alarm, granting her the Dynaraka whip. This whip has 320 attack, 90 accuracy, and a high chance to inflict freeze. As for gun recommendations, she only has 4 that inflict ailments. 2 are acquired by itemizing Succubus in and out of a Fusion Alarm. The Brain Shot has a low chance of Brainwash, and the Fusion Alarm variant Pink Buster has a medium chance. As for her strongest ranged weapon, it's Gungnir, which is acquired by itemizing Odin and Fusion Alarm. This offers a medium chance of Despair and has an attack of 340 and an accuracy of 90. As for armor, anything that has high defense or a nice buff to stats would be appreciated for On. The Godsent Dress is a really nice option, acquired when itemizing Phoenix in a Fusion Alarm. This armor gives 110 defense, 14 evasion, and a very much appreciated +6 to magic. There are some armors that improve ice resistance or evasion, but since you can acquire the actual skill Evade Ice, there really isn't a need to go out of your way to acquire an armor that has this effect. In terms of Vesper protection, Cirrus Armor EX acquired by itemizing Messiah in a Fusion Alarm grants 330 defense, 10 evasion, and a high damage reduction from all magic attacks, which is pretty helpful given how frail On is. Lastly, we have accessories. Itemizing Asterius is a good option, as during a Fusion Alarm it gives their Infernal Horns that increase endurance by 13, which helps On actually take hits a lot better, as well as giving Fire Amp. This is useful if you have yet to acquire the skill. You can also buy an accessory in Kishijoji for 40k yen called the Crimson Necklace that also gives Fire Amp, which is easier to acquire and doesn't require a DLC persona. Spellmaster is also another good option for On, but the only way to acquire it is via an accessory known as the Magic Misanga, which is from a challenge battle against the Persona 3 protagonist and scoring 360,000 points. An easier way to help manage SP would be from Takemi's shop, as she offers the SP Adhesive 3, which grants Invigorate 3 at rank 5 in her social link. The price of this item varies, being either 100k yen or 50k yen depending on Takemi's social link rank.
On's biggest strength is definitely her magic damage output, which is overall the consistently highest among the party throughout the game. Getting both the amp and boost passive skills for her element is fairly standard among the party members in this game, but she has a few things that set her apart. She has the highest magic stat, and she typically learns higher base power magic skills earlier than the other party members. On a similar note, she learns Fire Boost and Fire Amp a bit earlier than the other party members learn their boost and amp skills as well. Also, she is the only party member who learns Concentrate naturally by level up, though there are other ways to obtain it like the Jazz Club or gear. In addition to this, her access to technical damage powers up her and the rest of the party's damage output tremendously. Sleep is arguably the best ailment in the game due to the fact that any attack can land technicals on a sleeping target, and On is the only party member, aside from the protagonist obviously, with access to sleep skills. If you play billiards to max out your technical rank, technicals become completely busted, dealing way higher damage and knocking down foes, so it's absolutely worth building around. On stands out for being both a great magic attacker on her own, and also the best enabler of other magic attackers in the party. This is due to a combination of two factors. One of those is her trait, which as Jeff mentioned, has a chance to reduce SP cost anytime one of the party members uses an offensive magic skill. It's an extremely helpful trait for the SP economy, and particularly helpful for the skills that have disproportionately high SP costs. The other factor is our third awakening skill, High Energy. Applying Concentrate to the whole party is insanely strong and leads to massively increased damage output when applied to other strong magic attackers. High Energy may not be available until near the end of the game, but On still has great contribution to the early game due to her magic damage, access to sleep, even some other support options like Tarunda and Dia. She has an excellent skill set, and her availability is among the best in the game, which makes her value even more consistent.
Ana's a strong party member, but she isn't without her flaws. First, she has no physical attacks in her skill set, as well as no other means of magical damage aside from fire, of course. I hinted at this earlier when talking about Fire Break, and while that skill can help circumvent this weakness, you do have to set it up first. Without it, she is generally walled out by any enemy that resists, nulls, repels, or drains fire. Due to her lacking elemental flexibility, there are just some fights she is not good for, and you should probably opt for a different party member in some instances. Ana herself also has a pretty low endurance stat, as Josh talked about earlier, making her one of the more frailer party members to use. Additionally, despite her passive helping her out, it is definitely essential to equip gear to help manage her SP, as she burns through it very fast in late game given how much SP both High Energy and Blazing Hell cost. Another unfortunate weakness of Ana is despite sleep being a very powerful ailment, most bosses are immune to ailments, making her tech-focused playstyle impossible to pull off in these fights specifically. She is still very good for bosses that don't resist fire, but it is still important to mention about that part of her kit specifically. Honestly, some of these are a bit of a stretch, as Ana is one of the best magic-focused party members given the skills she learns for her own damage output, as well as providing invaluable support with high energy.
Ana is a very versatile party member who can work well with any of the others, since any attack can tech off sleep. However, due to the reasons I mentioned before when listing her strengths, she works best with other magic attackers. For that reason, I think the best party member to pair with her is Makoto. She also has some of the best magic damage in the party alongside An, and her persona trait passively increases the chance of inflicting several ailments, including burn, so they both provide very useful utility to each other. Makoto's Atomic Flare in particular really benefits both from high energy and the SP cost reduction from An's trait. Morgana can also be a good pairing for similar reasons, though he and Makoto cover a similar niche as party healers, so I would recommend using only one of them. I do think Makoto is a bit better since Morgana isn't as strong of a magic attacker. These two also both have the advantage of being able to land tentacles off burn when An applies it, since they specialize in nuclear and wind magic respectively. As for the final slot, I think the best options are either Haru or Akechi. Haru's magic damage is consistently higher throughout most of the game, probably the best in the party behind An and Makoto, so she's naturally a good fit for compositions built around high energy. However, near the very end of the game, Akechi gains a skill that massively increases his damage output, Rebellion Blade. This is not able to be used in too many battles, but when it is available, it massively benefits from both high energy and the SP cost reduction from Pinnacle of Magic, so this can be a fun pairing to try out. His trait having a chance to lower the SP cost of support skill is also very helpful for high energy, so there's some nice two-way synergy there between their traits like what I said before about Makoto. Overall, you can't really go wrong with using An in any party composition. The others we didn't mention aren't bad pairings with her at all. We just think that you can get the most value out of her by focusing your entire party primarily on tentacles and magic damage in general.
As for game differences, most of the party members in Royal share a lot in common with the original counterparts in the first Persona 5, but Ana does have a few differences to note. The one main thing that applies to everyone is the fact that Persona traits are completely new in Royal, so there is no Mastery or Pinnacle of Magic present in the OG rendition. The main thing this does for Ana specifically is just that she is more SP inefficient, which is somewhat unfortunate since she still has access to Blazing Hell. However, since the third semester isn't a thing in the original game, there is no Third Awakening, and by extension, no High Energy. Although this is a bit of a damper on her viability in magic teams, her own magic is still great since she still has access to both Fire Boost and Amp, as well as Concentrate. The only main change to her moveset is that instead of Tentarufu being unlocked at level 30, she gets Lullaby in Royal. So if you want to inflict sleep, you would need to keep Dormina in your kit, which is fine since it's at least more reliable. Speaking of sleep, it is also slightly worse than the original game. Even though it was still really good since sleep techs off of everything, in Royal technicals are even stronger since you can raise your technical rank when playing billiards and Kichichoji. So basically, a great element in Persona 5 went from being strong to completely broken in Royal. Other than that, there aren't too many differences that affect An specifically.
That's about all we have to say about An. If you enjoyed the video or have any thoughts of your own, please leave a like and make sure to comment. I also recommend checking the description if you're not already subscribed to both of our channels. Stay tuned for the next episode of Persona Overview next week on JCross' channel, where we'll be moving on to the next party member, Chie Satonaka from Persona 4. Thanks for watching.